In every generation, there comes one man who refuses to live by limits. A man who looks at the impossible and calls it unfinished work. A garage, one computer, one dream. While the world traded paper for profit, he traded time for destiny. His name would become a symbol of scale. His company would rewrite the architecture of civilization. They called him obsessed, ruthless, unstoppable. But history will call him something else, the architect of the digital age. From bookshelves to the stars, from code to cosmos, Jeff Bezos built an empire not with bricks and steel, but with belief. An empire so vast it touches every life on Earth. And now, as his rockets pierce the heavens, a new question rises with them. Can a single man truly become the world's first trillionaire? This is not just a story about money. It's a story about vision, power, and the relentless pursuit of forever. This is the untold rise of Jeff Bezos. In the heart of Albuquerque, New Mexico, in 1964, a boy named Jeffrey Preston Bezos entered the world, a child who would one day redefine global commerce. His mother was only a teenager when he was born. His adoptive father, Miguel Bezos, an immigrant from Cuba, gave the family a new name and a new hope. From an early age, Jeff was not content with simple answers. He dismantled his toys to see how they worked, built makeshift laboratories in his family's garage, and dreamed of space, a dream that would one day evolve into Blue Origin. Teachers remembered a boy who thought in systems, curious, calculating, and utterly fearless. But it was the era of the digital dawn, the early 1990s, that gave Bezos his stage. Working at D.E. Shaw on Wall Street, he studied how technology could disrupt finance. Yet even amid the predictable hum of investment models, Bezos saw a different future forming, one written not in financial ledgers, but in lines of code. One day, he stumbled upon a simple statistic. Internet usage was growing at 2,300% per year. It wasn't just growth, it was a revolution. And in that moment, he decided to leave the comfort of a high-paying job on Wall Street to chase something no one else dared to imagine, an online bookstore that could sell everything. The world thought it was madness. But Jeff Bezos wasn't following the world's logic. He was building his own. He packed his car, drove from New York to Seattle with his wife, Mackenzie Scott, and on that long cross-country drive, Amazon was born, not as a company, but as a conviction. The conviction that if you build something people love and scale it fast enough, the world will catch up. The Garage Years. How Amazon was built from nothing. In the summer of 1994, the hum of a cheap air conditioner filled a small rented garage in Bellevue, Washington. There were no corporate banners, no suits or fancy desks, only a few computers, a long wooden table, and the relentless sound of typing. Here, Jeff Bezos began what he called his regret minimization framework, a philosophy that pushed him to act on his biggest ideas before fear could stop him. He wanted to ensure that when he was old, he would not regret not having tried to build something extraordinary. The company's original name wasn't even Amazon. It was Cadabra, Inc., a play on abracadabra. But when a lawyer misheard it as cadaver, Bezos quickly rebranded, choosing Amazon after the world's largest river, symbolizing vastness and endless possibility. The company's first product was simple: books. Bezos believed books were the perfect test case: millions of titles, lightweight, easy to ship, and universally loved. But it wasn't the books themselves that mattered. It was the infrastructure, the idea of infinite selection. The team, just a handful of employees, worked from the garage, packaging orders by hand, and using Bezos's own garage door as a loading dock. When the company made its first sale, a book on artificial intelligence, Bezos reportedly rang a bell and smiled. It wasn't the revenue that thrilled him, but the realization someone somewhere trusted us enough to click buy. Within just 1 year, Amazon.com grew faster than anyone imagined. By 1996, sales reached $15.7 million, but profits? None. Bezos wasn't chasing profit, he was chasing scale. Every cent earned was reinvested to improve speed, logistics, and reach. He knew he was building not just a store, but a system that could sell anything. The garage walls that once held a handful of books would soon give way to warehouses the size of football fields. Still, many mocked him. Wall Street analysts called Amazon a doomed idea and dismissed online shopping as a fad. But Bezos had a simple answer. He wasn't competing with bookstores, he was redefining retail. And with every order shipped, Amazon grew, and so did the dream. A dream born from a garage that would soon engulf the global marketplace. The Internet Gold Rush, Amazon's explosive growth and IPO, 1997 to 2000. By 1997, the world had begun to whisper a new word, .com. The Internet was no longer a mystery, but a revolution, and every ambitious dreamer wanted a stake in it. Amid that digital gold rush, Jeff Bezos stood at the frontier, a quiet disruptor in jeans and a laugh that echoed through every investor meeting. Amazon was no longer just a bookstore. It was an idea that was rewriting the very foundation of commerce. Bezos saw the web not as a novelty, but as the ultimate marketplace, a boundless network where anyone could buy anything with a click. But to fuel that vision, he needed capital, and lots of it. On May 15, 1997, Amazon.com went public on the Nasdaq, offering shares at $18 each. Analysts scoffed at the valuation, calling it unrealistic and speculative. Yet within hours, the IPO was oversubscribed, and Amazon's market cap soared to $438 million. Bezos had done it. He'd transformed a garage startup into a public company in just 3 years. Still, there was no celebration in the traditional sense. Instead, Bezos gathered his small team and reminded them, "It's still day one. This is just the beginning." He meant it. While others focused on quarterly profits, Bezos obsessed over long-term dominance. He reinvested everything into infrastructure, building new fulfillment centers, developing cutting-edge logistics systems, and improving the website speed. Every cent was poured back into the machine. To outsiders, Amazon looked reckless, a company losing millions each quarter. But to Bezos, those were not losses, they were seeds. By 1999, Amazon's revenue had climbed to over $1.64 billion. The company expanded beyond books, into music, electronics, toys, and even clothing. Bezos's dream of the everything store was materializing before the world's eyes. The media began calling him the king of the Internet. Bezos appeared on the cover of Time magazine, crowned as Person of the Year. He wasn't just building a company, he was building a blueprint for the future of retail. But with great success came great volatility. The dot-com bubble loomed, and when it burst in 2000, most online startups vanished overnight. But Amazon survived. It bled, yes, its stock fell by more than 90%, and skeptics predicted its end. But Bezos remained unshaken, famously saying, "In the long term, the stock market is a voting machine, but in the short term, it's a weighing machine, and we are building weight." The crash and the comeback. How Bezos Rebuilt Amazon After the Dot-Com Collapse, 2001 to 2005. The new millennium arrived like a tidal wave, full of hope, hype, and hidden danger. When the dot-com bubble burst in 2000, it wiped away billions of dollars in market value overnight. The streets of Silicon Valley grew quiet, office lights dimmed, startups folded by the hundreds. And amid the silence stood Amazon, bleeding but unbroken. Its stock had fallen from a high of $107 to barely $6 per share. Analysts mocked it as Amazon.bomb. Newspapers predicted its death. Even Wall Street turned its back on the once celebrated visionary Jeff Bezos. But Bezos didn't see a collapse. He saw correction, a pruning of false promises, leaving behind the truly resilient. In those dark days, Bezos walked through the quiet aisles of Amazon's warehouses, observing, reflecting. He reminded his team that companies that focus on the customer will survive, and survive Amazon did. Instead of retreating, Bezos went back to the fundamentals: logistics, technology, and efficiency. He cut costs, optimized warehouses, and poured resources into building something bigger than anyone imagined. Not just a store, but an ecosystem. In 2002, amid skepticism, Amazon quietly launched a service that seemed insignificant at first: Amazon Web Services, AWS. The world didn't notice, but history would. What began as an internal tool to manage Amazon's infrastructure became the foundation of the modern Internet. AWS would one day power Netflix, Airbnb, NASA, and even government systems, a digital backbone for the world. By 2005, Amazon turned its first profit, a modest $5 million. But to Bezos, it meant everything. It was proof that the model worked. And beyond numbers, a new culture was taking shape: frugality, innovation, and experimentation. Bezos famously banned PowerPoint presentations, insisting that every idea be written as a 6-page narrative memo. He demanded clarity of thought over flashy slides. He believed that if you can't explain your idea clearly in writing, you don't understand it well enough. While others panicked, Bezos built. By 2005, Amazon introduced Amazon Prime, a subscription model offering 2-day shipping. An idea so bold, most dismissed it as financial suicide, but it redefined loyalty. Customers no longer bought from Amazon, they lived with Amazon. The tide had turned. Bezos's quiet determination had transformed crisis into creation. From the ashes of the dot-com crash, a new Amazon rose, leaner, smarter, and ready to dominate. Prime Power: How Amazon Became the World's Most Dominant Retail Empire, 2006 to 2010. By 2006, the storm had cleared. The dot-com wreckage was behind him, and Jeff Bezos stood at the edge of a new digital frontier. Amazon was no longer the scrappy bookstore it once was. It was a machine of logistics, data, and relentless innovation. At its heart pulsed a bold idea: Prime, the program that would turn ordinary shoppers into lifelong customers. For $79 a year, members would receive 2-day shipping on millions of items. It sounded absurd. How could such a promise make money? But Bezos wasn't chasing profit, he was chasing loyalty. He understood something few did at the time. In the digital world, trust is the new currency. Every Prime delivery, every one-click order was a small promise kept. And with every kept promise, Amazon grew stronger. Within 2 years, Prime had millions of members, and those members spent twice as much as non-members. It was a revolution, not in technology, but in psychology. Yet Bezos wasn't done. He looked beyond physical goods to the next great frontier, digital content. In 2007, Amazon unveiled the Kindle, a sleek e-reader that could download thousands of books in seconds. It wasn't just a product, it was a platform, a tool that democratized reading and disrupted an entire publishing industry. Publishers resisted, critics mocked, but readers loved it. By the end of its first year, Amazon controlled 90% of the e-book market. Then came AWS's global launch in 2006, offering businesses the ability to rent Amazon's computing power. It was quiet, invisible to the average shopper, but it transformed the internet itself. Suddenly, startups no longer needed to buy expensive servers. They could rent power from Amazon and build the future atop its cloud. By 2010, Amazon had evolved into something far greater than an online store. It was a living ecosystem, spanning retail, cloud computing, and digital media. Bezos had built the infrastructure of the new digital economy. From the outside, it looked effortless, but inside, it was a war of precision. Warehouses ran on tight algorithms. Delivery trucks moved like clockwork. Data was analyzed, optimized, and re-optimized every second of every day. Bezos's mantra echoed through every level of the company. Work hard, have fun, make history. And history indeed was being made. Amazon's market value soared past $80 billion. Its global workforce exceeded 30,000, and Bezos's personal net worth climbed beyond $20 billion. He was no longer just an internet entrepreneur. He was the architect of the modern consumer age. As one journalist put it, Jeff Bezos didn't just change how we shop, he changed how we live. The Cloud King. How AWS quietly made Jeff Bezos the richest man alive, 2010 to 2015. By 2010, Jeff Bezos had built a fortress of commerce, an empire of boxes, algorithms, and speed. But what most people didn't see was the invisible engine powering it all. Amazon Web Services, AWS. Born in the back rooms of Amazon's early days, it had now grown into the unseen infrastructure of the modern web. Netflix streamed through it. NASA stored data on it. Even competitors relied on it, sometimes unknowingly. To the public, Amazon was still a place to buy books and gadgets, but behind the curtain, it had become the world's largest cloud computing company, renting out digital power to the planet's most ambitious businesses. Bezos had effectively turned Amazon into a utility company for the internet age. Every startup, every app, every online transaction powered quietly by AWS. It was the gold rush of data, and Bezos owned the pickaxes. By 2012, AWS generated over $2 billion in annual revenue. By 2015, it was approaching $8 billion, with profit margins higher than any retail operation in Amazon's history. Investors, once skeptical of Bezos's spend now, earn later strategy, finally saw what he had been building all along. A multi-dimensional company that monetized both sides of the digital economy, the consumers and the creators. While Silicon Valley chased headlines, Bezos chased systems. While others sold products, he sold infrastructure. And through it all, he remained patient, cold, calculating, deliberate. He often said, "Your margin is my opportunity." And nowhere was that truer than in the cloud. In boardrooms across the world, CEOs realized something staggering. Their companies, their entire digital existence, now depended on Amazon. By 2015, Amazon's total market value had surpassed $250 billion. Bezos's personal fortune exceeded $50 billion. But it wasn't the wealth that defined him. It was his obsession with building for the long term. He wasn't trying to win the quarter, he was trying to win the century. As the sun set on the old era of retail, a new reality emerged. Amazon was no longer a store, it was the Internet's nervous system. And at the center of it all, standing in quiet confidence, was Jeff Bezos, the Cloud King. The global giant, Amazon's domination, innovation, and billion-dollar expansion, 2015 to 2020. By 2015, Jeff Bezos had achieved what most visionaries could only dream of: global domination in both retail and technology. But for Bezos, domination was never the endgame. It was only the foundation. From his sleek, glass-walled headquarters in Seattle, Bezos was building something far more ambitious. A living organism, one that evolved, adapted, and learned. Amazon had transcended from an e-commerce company into a tech-driven ecosystem. Every click, every delivery, every spoken word to Alexa fed a data machine that refined itself with terrifying precision. Bezos's genius wasn't just scale, it was integration. Every service Amazon offered, from Prime Video to Amazon Web Services, was part of a seamless loop that kept customers within its universe. One subscription, one account, one empire. Amazon Prime reached over 150 million subscribers globally by 2020. Its logistics network stretched across continents, with more than 175 fulfillment centers, 400,000 robots, and over 1 million employees. What once began in a garage was now the heartbeat of global commerce. In India, warehouses rose like temples of trade. In Europe, Amazon trucks rolled through historic streets, symbols of a new economic age. And in America, same-day delivery became not a luxury, but an expectation. But Bezos wasn't done. He poured billions into automation and artificial intelligence, envisioning a future where algorithms managed the flow of goods faster than human hands ever could. He once said, "We're not in the business of selling things, we're in the business of making things easy." And ease became Amazon's most powerful weapon. Meanwhile, his side ventures, Blue Origin, The Washington Post, and investments in AI and healthcare showed his hunger to shape every frontier. By 2020, Amazon's market value had crossed $1 trillion. Bezos became the richest man in modern history, with a fortune surpassing $190 billion. The boy who once packed books on the floor of a garage was now the architect of the modern economy. And yet, behind the smiles and shareholder celebrations, Bezos remained restless. His gaze was fixed beyond Earth, towards the stars. Because for Jeff Bezos, the planet had simply become too small. The Space Dream, Blue Origin, and Bezos's Vision Beyond Earth, 2020 to 2025. By 2020, the Earth had become too small for Jeff Bezos. While others competed for markets and headlines, Bezos set his sights on the cosmos. He often spoke of space not as a fantasy, but as a necessity. In his words, "We have to go to space to save Earth." It wasn't just poetry, it was a philosophy. Through Blue Origin, his private aerospace company founded in 2000, Bezos sought to make space travel as routine as air travel. For years it had moved quietly, overshadowed by SpaceX's louder, faster achievements. But Bezos, methodical as ever, wasn't chasing speed, he was building legacy. The company's Latin motto, Gradatim ferotiter, step by step, ferociously, summed up his entire approach to life. Every rocket, every engine, every launch was a building block towards something larger, a permanent human presence beyond Earth. In 2021, Blue Origin made history when its New Shepard rocket carried Bezos himself into suborbital space. The world watched as the capsule ascended through the thin blue edge of the atmosphere, and for the first time, Jeff Bezos looked down at Earth, suspended like a fragile jewel in the void. When he landed, his words echoed with quiet conviction. Every person who goes to space says the same thing. We need to protect this planet. But protecting Earth wasn't the end. It was only part of the equation. Bezos envisioned millions of people living and working in space, harnessing the limitless energy of the sun. To him, industrial activity should move off-planet, leaving Earth as a garden. Under his leadership, Blue Origin developed BE-4 engines for reusable rockets, lunar landers, and New Glenn, a heavy-lift orbital vehicle designed to compete with Falcon Heavy. NASA awarded Blue Origin a $3.4 billion contract in 2023 for its Artemis lunar mission, a milestone that placed Bezos at the center of humanity's return to the moon. And while Elon Musk spoke of colonizing Mars, Bezos's dream was closer and perhaps wiser. He believed that instead of escaping Earth, we should expand its possibilities. Beyond the noise of competition, Bezos continued to pour billions into research, robotics, and space infrastructure. Each investment, from artificial gravity systems to orbital habitats, pushed the boundaries of what was once science fiction. By 2025, Blue Origin had evolved from a private venture into one of the most valuable aerospace firms on the planet, worth nearly $100 billion, with contracts spanning defense, space tourism, and lunar exploration. Jeff Bezos had once built an empire that delivered packages to doorsteps. Now he was building one that could deliver humanity to the stars. And in that transformation, he became something more than a billionaire. He became a bridge between worlds. The mind of Bezos, philosophy, leadership, and the relentless pursuit of innovation. 2025 and beyond. There are men who build companies, and there are men who build systems that outlast them. Jeff Bezos belongs to the latter. In the quiet rhythm of his mind lies a formula that turned an online bookstore into one of the greatest economic machines in history. It was never luck, it was never just timing, it was design. From the very beginning, Bezos operated by three core laws: simplicity, patience, and compounding innovation. His obsession with the customer experience wasn't a marketing slogan, it was a science. He once said, "We're not competitor-obsessed, we're customer-obsessed." Every algorithm, every delivery truck, every AI system Amazon deployed was a reflection of that singular idea: make life easier, relentlessly. He believed that success wasn't built by prediction, but by experimentation. To him, failure wasn't a threat, it was the tuition you paid for progress. This is why Amazon could afford to fail with the Fire Phone and then build Alexa, AWS, and Prime Video into multi-billion-dollar successes. Behind the boardroom confidence was a mind obsessed with efficiency, scale, and time. Bezos saw time differently. He often told employees, "We're willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time." To him, the long game was everything. He invested not for quarters, but for decades. When Amazon's profits were small, critics mocked him. But he understood something fundamental: profit follows patience. He reinvested every cent back into infrastructure, data systems, and cloud technology. And that patience transformed Amazon from a warehouse operation into a $1.4 trillion technology empire. His leadership style was deliberate, demanding, and data-driven. Meetings began with 6-page memos instead of slides, forcing executives to think in depth, not in slogans. His teams operated on what he called the Day One philosophy, a reminder that the company should always act as though it were still a startup, curious, hungry, and innovative. Day 2 is stasis, he warned, followed by irrelevance, followed by excruciating decline, followed by death. And so, Amazon stayed in Day 1. Even after stepping down as CEO in 2021, Bezos's principles remained encoded in the company's DNA. He turned his attention to philanthropy, climate innovation, and space infrastructure, but his intellectual fingerprints continued to shape the global economy. By 2025, Bezos was no longer just a businessman. He was a framework, an idea about what human ambition can become when guided by purpose, patience, and precision. His legacy is not just in dollars, rockets, or robots. It's in the invisible systems he built, the ones that deliver, connect, and sustain billions of lives every single day. As the camera fades, his voice lingers in the background, calm, certain, eternal. Work hard, have fun, make history. And indeed, he did. Legacy of a Titan. The Trillionaire Blueprint. There comes a point in every empire where its story transcends the man who built it. For Jeff Bezos, that moment arrived when the world no longer spoke of Amazon as a company, but as a force of nature. From the quiet hum of server farms to the thundering launch of rockets beyond the stratosphere, his fingerprints are etched into the 21st century. He didn't just build a trillion-dollar empire, he built the infrastructure of modern civilization. Think of it. Every second, over 6,000 Amazon packages are shipped. Over 1.5 million businesses rely on AWS to function, and billions of consumers, knowingly or not, orbit within the gravitational field of his ideas. But for Bezos, wealth was never the destination. It was a tool, a way to push humanity forward. His gaze, once fixed on retail and logistics, now turns toward the stars. Through Blue Origin, he envisions a civilization where millions live and work in space, preserving Earth as a sanctuary. In his words, "We must move heavy industry off Earth so our planet can become a residential zone." It's a vision rooted in responsibility, not conquest, one that fuses profit with preservation. By 2025, his investments in climate technology, AI-driven logistics, and sustainable space infrastructure reveal a pattern. Jeff Bezos is preparing not for the next decade, but for the next century. And yet, beneath the vast machinery of his success lies a simple truth: discipline. He once said, "If you double the number of experiments you do per year, you're going to double your inventiveness." That mindset, systematic curiosity, is the true engine of his wealth. In boardrooms, his methods are studied like scripture: relentless customer focus, reinvention over repetition, data as language, and patience as profit. The man who once packed boxes in his garage now oversees a global architecture of commerce, cloud, and connectivity, worth over $1.4 trillion. But his real empire isn't Amazon. It's the culture of scale, the idea that the future belongs to those who build for humanity, not just for themselves. As his rockets climb higher and his data systems burrow deeper into the fabric of civilization, the question arises: has Jeff Bezos already crossed the threshold into the realm of the world's first trillionaire? Financially, not yet, but conceptually, in influence, infrastructure, and innovation, he's already there. And perhaps that's the point, because wealth, in its purest form, is not counted in dollars, it's measured in impact. As the sun sets behind the Blue Origin launch pad, Bezos stands watching the next flight ascend. It's more than a rocket. It's the symbol of his life's work, to move humanity forward, one bold experiment at a time. The camera pans wide. Earth glows below, vast and blue. Above, a single capsule arcs into the silence of space. The narrator's voice fades, deep and resolute. Some build fortunes. Others build the future. Jeff Bezos did both. Subscribe to Factsxup for more inspiring and motivational business documentary. Like, share, and comment.